So let's say the motion was, this House believes that countries should not use their natural resources or strategic assets as collateral for their international debts. Just to be clear for this motion, government is the side that defends less short-term international debt, and opposition is the side that defends relatively more short-term international debt, because states are able to use their natural resources as collateral. In this debate, a very high-level opening half would likely engage on the way in which debt in this particular way can be very exploitative or it can be very productive. There's a very high chance that opening government would run the arguments on how long-term debt tied to natural resources can be very debilitating because of irreparable environmental damage, which makes it harder to loan more in the future. Whereas opening opposition would clash by saying that these trade-offs are necessary because of immediate economic development, which will enable states to create more jobs, provide more welfare, and all of the other benefits of having more money. At this point, if you were in the closing half, take stock of the existing issues in this debate. There's an independent issue on when states should make sacrifices for economic development, and there's the independent issue on whether more debt in this particular way actually achieves those goals. And of course, there are multiple reasons to prove this more and more and more. But again, that's the point of the strategy of opening half. Here's how a high-level closing half would evolve the debate further using an entirely different issue, but still packaged within the opening half. So here's what we'll do. Closing half can approach this debate by identifying that when natural resources are used as collateral, it either undermines governments through political capture by multinational corporations, or it dissuades foreign entities from taking more aggressive action on these assets. Let me explain. For closing government, it can be explained that collateral creates hesitancy within government institutions and previously state-owned enterprises, because these assets can be seized by foreign entities at any point in time, so there's more and more uncertainty. So independent on whether or not more or less debt is good, which is the debate of the opening half, this is its own economic harm that comes directly from political capture when natural resources are put on the table. So closing government may argue that that is why these resources shouldn't be surrendered as collateral, because it undermines regulatory institutions and it breeds distrust and long-term distrust in government. For closing opposition, they can respond to this by explaining that states may still need to borrow money on either side of the house, which is, again, an exercise in the true comparative. And so they may either end up printing more money or financing themselves in illicit ways through arms dealing or military contracting, which in both cases, right, undermine and incapacitate those governments as well. So instead, closing opposition would say that it is exactly the process of offering resources as collateral that secures political stability by guaranteeing geopolitical protection as a temporary protection from the violent capture from foreign states, which can happen through sanctions, through proxy wars, or through mass foreign investment, etc., etc. And of course, in a domestic level, it prevents very, very bad domestic monetary policy. Notice that these arguments are from a completely different issue on political stability and the trust in governments. But they are, of course, quite deeply related to the prospect of economic development and of the control that we have of environmental resources, which also contributes to environmental protections. And it's quite easy, once you've proven the argument, to make this connection, because it's quite easy to demonstrate that it's a precondition for those economic jobs and also a precondition for future trust and the ability for you to borrow more money in the long term. So again, what's the bottom line for this video? Elevate your arguments at closing to be more comprehensive. Listen to your opening's arguments. Don't give up on those issues entirely. And don't just make a new extension entirely without thinking of the ways in which it responds to existing issues in the debate. Alright, that's it for today's video. Thanks all.